name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Cataclysm Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.cataclysm.com. And our special guest today is Joey Cox, the lead singer from the band Layne Staley. And Joey's doing an interview with us for our On the Record segment. This is going to be a part one of a two-part interview. Today we're going to be talking with Joey for our On the Record segment, and we're going to be talking about Alice In Chains' 1992 album Dirt, which was released on September 29th, 1992. So let's get right into it, Joey. Why was this Alice In Chains album that you wanted to talk about today?
Man, Dirt just had, I don't know, as far as versatility, I feel like that was probably one of their more versatile albums. They were kind of all over the place with it.
Yeah. And I gotta say, at the time, 1992, this was when a lot of people like myself first became aware of Alice In Chains. They were becoming more and more popular once Dirt was released. They were all over MTV, but at the time they were a very different sounding band. And the songwriting, I think, especially Jerry Cantrell's songwriting, has always been very strong within this band.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so, what was it that attracted? Like, do you remember? Not even. Well, I guess if we're talking about Dirt, so what was the first song you might have heard off of this album, or first music video you saw?
Them Bones.
Them Bones. And that's interesting because I was reading today and doing research for this that Jerry Cantrell said that what Them Bones is about is kind of everybody's mortality, of the fact that we're all going to end up dead, a pile of bones one day. Kind of interesting thing to write a song about, but nonetheless, it's a very cool sounding song, and that's kind of what I really dig about Alice In Chains, the fact that you could write a song about something like that, and it's just such a great sounding song, Yeah,
for sure, man. And then, of course, being a vet, Rooster obviously stands out more to me than anything,
Yeah.
Just everything behind that song, I was like, wow.
Wow, yeah, you're
amazing.
Yeah, and another song on here that a lot of people are probably dig is the song for Wood, and I was reading that actually it didn't win, but it was up for a MTV Music Award back in 1992 for the fact that it was used in the film Singles. I don't know if you've ever seen that film or not, or what are your thoughts on Wood or the video for that song?
Wood, without revealing too much about the tour or whatever, but the idea has been thrown around about just adding that in as a fun song to do on selected dates. But no, Wood was actually probably one of the first Alice In Chains songs that I ever attempted to sing.
Oh, wow. And go back in time and share with us, what your experience was like as a singer trying to sing that song for the very first time.
Oh, man. Being a 12-year-old kid trying to belt out some Layne Staley and Jerry Cantrell.
Yeah.
It's a different experience, especially if you haven't hit puberty yet. So everything goes real high.
Yeah, and not to get too filthy here, but that's why I want people to kind of understand. Wood. We're not referencing what most people may think it's just kind of them asking, what would you do and stuff, but. I again, with the songwriting, I really love their play on words,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you're the perfect guy to be talking about Alice In Chains, because for anybody that doesn't know, like I said, you're the lead singer for his band, Layne's Calling, and first time I interviewed you was about a month ago, and we were talking about your new album that's just come out, and you were sharing me kind of a story behind the band's name, is the fact that you're a huge Layne Staley fan, and you thought, hey, what a better way to pay tribute to the guy than kind of, naming my band after him. And Layne's Calling, like when I first heard the name, I had no idea it had anything to do with Layne's Staley. I mean, it's kind of spelt the same, but I thought, okay, Layne's Calling, maybe that's the name of something, where the band is from. I had no idea, but cool when you dig a little deeper and you find out that's actually what your band is named after. It's pretty cool,
Yeah, actually, part of that idea actually came from a song that Miles Kennedy did with Alter Bridge.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a song about the park, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the song now. now that I'm on the spot. But
Yeah,
anyways, he was talking about a little bit of the meaning behind the song, and it was actually about a park behind his home. And I was like, you know what, that's really cool. Just to take an idea like that and be like, you know what, here we go.
Yeah, and it's a great story because it gets people talking about, you know, not just your band but Alice in Chains. And again, you know, when you look at the album, I remember when Alice in Chains, you know, first came out, and you know, grunge was really big in the early '90s, and it was just taking over the airways and everything. And a lot of it I was kind of turned off to because a lot of his stuff is really you know, dark, and it's not. And I grew up like on music, but you know, like Kiss, and Motley Crue, Van Halen stuff's a little more like good time music and good feeling. But one thing I always kind of gravitated towards Alice in Chains for was, you know, they got their own unique sound, but at the same time they've got kind of a Sabbathy vibe to them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry, as far as versatile guitar players, he is. I'd rank him right up there with the best for sure. He can give you the sad melodic stuff, or he can give you the in your face and, you know, the headbanging all in the same song too.
Yeah.
You know, that's the cool part about Jerry.
Oh yeah, I mean, just to give a perfect example of that, I mean, I'd have to say my all-time favorite Alice in Chains song, going back to the previous album, would be "Man in a Box," for the simple fact. Not as only just like a great riff and great groove all through the song, but that was, like a lot of people, that was my first exposure to Alice in Chains, so it's got a special place in my heart. But then at the same time, I also dig songs like "Heaven Beside You" or, you know, "I Stay Away." They're more ballady type, but like you said, this guy's songwriting is all over the place, and I think that's part of a reason why, even though with Layne Staley passing away, Alice in Chains has been able to kind of carry on with William DeVoe, because Jerry's vocals are just as important as Layne Staley's ever were in his songwriting. And I think the fact that Layne Staley, you know, wasn't kicked out of the band, but he was, you know, he passed away, which really he didn't have a choice in, if you know what I mean. I think that's why fans are more accepting of Alice in Chains carrying on, you know.
You know, I was actually watching the Man in the Box documentary on YouTube the other day.
Oh, okay.
And they were talking about, you know, the last live performance with Layne, and before the MTV Unplugged experience, and then, of course, you had his passing shortly after that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just crazy to hear the story behind Alice in Chains and how they came to be, you know, using practice spaces, and just, you know, how Layne was never really kind of a part of the band, just kind of migrated into the band.
Wow, yeah.
You know, but it's cool stuff like that gives the listeners a little bit more of the in-depth experience.
Yeah, and it's unique that they've been able to carry on with William DeVoe, because he's a great singer in his own right, and it's amazing that how much he sounds. You know, he's got his own unique vocal style, but at the same time, he sounds a lot like Layne Staley. And then I think you got you got Jerry's vocals in there that have always been there, combined with that, and they still kind of got that classic sound. I'm not saying the fans don't miss Layne Staley, but and it's kind of unique because William DeVoe and Layne Staley are like night and day, literally. I don't just mean the guy's skin color, but I mean, you would not think you know, somebody like him would have that same type of kind of voice like Layne Staley, but it works. Then, you know, I loved you know, all the new albums they put out since he's been in the band. They're just as good, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, perfect example of being able to find replacements just as, I don't want to say as good as the originals, because nobody is going to be
that good.
Able to fill the shoes of the originals, but as far as being able to find a replacement that fits the profile perfectly, look at what's going on with Five Finger Death Punch right now in Indie Games.
Oh yeah, there you go. But you know, this stuff, like you said, it really has stood the test of time, you know. And I was reading in reference to Dirt. I never even heard of this book. I got to do some research on. But there's a book that came out in 2005 called like the like 1005 albums you must hear before you die, and they list Dirt on that album. I don't know where it quite ranks, but I mean, that's quite a list right there, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, you know, And that's the one thing. It's funny, I was reading an article the other day where Spotify CEO said it's no longer viable for artists to only be putting out music once every 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
They need to be putting out product once every year at least.
Yeah.
And, I kind of call bullshit on that, because you have bands, for instance, Eddie Van Halen, rest in peace, but after his passing, look what's going on with Van Halen's music. They skyrocketed back to the top of the charts.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, that always happens when somebody dies. It depends on their popularity, but like Van Halen is a great example, because I read somewhere that since he died, their record sales have gone up 600%. I mean, not 100%, 600%. That's quite a lot. I don't know what the exact figure is, but you can imagine. I would love to kind of go and break it down and say, okay, now, what's the most downloaded, Van Halen song since he died? What's the most downloaded album? Which albums are selling? Yeah. And it's kind of interesting, because a lot of people, when they reference Van Halen, especially those David Lee Roth albums, the very last one they did, which came out in 2012, it was called A Different Kind of Truth. A lot of people don't like that, because actually, even though it was a new album, it was like a lot of these old unwritten demos that they just kind of went in and recorded. But and people like to forget about the Gary Sharon album, but I think there was some decent stuff on there.
Yeah. I mean, another good example of that would have been Hybrid Theory from Linkin Park after Chester's passing. It's funny to hear these guys saying that you have to be constantly putting out material. Don't get me wrong, I think if you want to stay relevant in today's music industry, you absolutely need to be doing that. But first and foremost, you should be putting out music that's going to stand the test of time. There's a reason why guys like AC/DC are still out here touring, guys like
let me ask you about AC/DC. Have you heard their new single, man? It is really something special. It's funny, because 2020 is like the 40th anniversary of Back in Black. So it's 40 years Brian Johnson's been with the band. A few years ago, it looked like they might not be putting anything else out ever again, and they got this great new album coming out November 13th. And if I was to just base it on that one single I've heard so far, man, they're back. They got their game back, and they're even without Malcolm Young. I think this is going to be the year AC/DC comes back in a big way.
Oh yeah, and so one of the guys I was doing an interview with the other day about the End of Days festival asked me if I thought rock was dead. And I don't understand what people are talking about when they say that.
Yeah.
And especially with the numbers. I mean, you still have Metallica that's rocking the top fucking Billboard charts, and they haven't put out a new album in 3 years.
Yeah. So
I'm still kind of confused as to what people mean when they say rock is dead.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, because I don't know how old you are, but I can speak from my own experience. When I was growing up, there were like every band had a guitar hero. You have like a Randy Rhoads, a Warren DeMartini, a Vito Bratta, Joe Satriani, and a lot of that stuff is missing these days, or it's still out there, but it's not as obvious. I mean, I think there's a few bands still out there. You just got to kind of like look. For example, I don't know what you think of the band Steel Panther, but I just seen the other day, which is kind of cool. I think they got a new Del Taco commercial they put out, and it's kind of what you'd expect from a band like Steel Panther, in the sense that they're like dressed up like tribute band type of band they are, and they call it like Chicken Crazy or Chicken Tiger or something, but it's them advertising Del Taco's crispy chicken. And I love when music does stuff like that. They're kind of like having a spoof and fun with it, but it gets the band out there, And I would say Steel Panther is one of those bands that I think kind of prove that rock is still alive. Then you got a band like the Dead Daisies. John Corabi was with them up till a few years ago, and I love them. But the interesting thing about that band is the rhythm guitar player's name is David Lowery. He owns the band, and he has all these like 80s super rock guys coming in and out of a band. He's like the one mainstay. It's kind of like Whitesnake, but no matter how many lineup changes the band goes through, they remain just as popular. And they kind of got like a Deep Purple kind of sound. Oddly enough, Glenn Hughes is singing with them now. So there are bands like these guys that I'm mentioning out there that kind of got that rock star appeal. You just have to look for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I think also, like you were saying earlier, back in the day, you had every band had a guitar virtuoso.
Yeah.
I think today you still have those guys out there. It's just so, with as many social media platforms there are and how easy it is to get out there, you have a lot of guys that are doing the solo thing.
Yeah.
And they're very successful at it. I mean, look at Jason Richardson, for instance. I mean, he was doing the solo thing for a while before he, All That Remains?
Yeah.
Took over for. I mean, that's fucking killer.
and it's like, you just gotta be like, you just gotta go look for these bands. I mean, like you're saying, like a good example of what I'm talking about is I remember when grunge was really huge in the early 90s, like around 90, 92, the time period we're talking about, that Dirt came out, and all of a sudden you had these bands you had all these new metal bands and all these grunge bands are like, hey, we don't do solos, man. And I was the type of fan back then, well, hey, why not? That's why it surprised me, even a band like Limp Bizkit. That was the one band that, although I don't know if you call them new metal or grunge or whatever, but they at least kind of still had the rock star thing going on, with their guitar player.
I mean, they lived larger than life on stage.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. And then, you got all your old school bands that are kind of, these bands constantly getting back together and putting out stuff. But like, even if you go to a classic 70s band like Queen, they recently put out this live CD, DVD that they did with Adam Lambert, and it's got all your favorite classic Queen songs, and people are going to see that. It's not Queen with Freddie Mercury, and they know that. But they're, again, because Freddie died, and they got a decent enough guy that can sing the songs. Brian and Roger are able to still go out and do live shows and do it, but they're not releasing like a new Queen album with new studio tracks with Adam Lambert because they know that's not what the fans want. Yet, if you do some research, you'll come to find out that Queen's whole catalog of music, like I think Somebody to Love and Bohemian Rhapsody is like the most downloaded songs, and this one band's got the two most downloaded songs. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I actually just watched the documentary on the whole Adam Lambert story with Queen on Netflix not too long ago.
I think it's called The Show Must Go On. I seen that, and see, it's interesting because before Adam Lambert was in Queen, they had they were doing a big tour with and a CD with Paul Rodgers from Bad Company, but for whatever reason, as great of a singer as Paul Rodgers is, that did not work. People are more accepting of Adam Lambert. I think he's more flamboyant like Freddie, That's why I think fans have been more accepting of that.
Oh man, it's crazy to see just how fans react to different lineups.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to show you that the performance still has to be there.
Yeah.
You can be a killer musician and unfortunately not fit the profile that the fans are looking for in a certain band.
Yeah. Perfect example of that is like one of my favorite singers has always been Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. And because especially if, back in the day, like in 1984 when Twisted Sister was all over MTV and they had their big breakout with that album Stay Hungry and We're Not Gonna Take It, Dee Snider was like he was the anti-establishment. He spoke against everybody. I remember the Senatarians, people were trying to ban him and Twisted Sister, and he was a guy speaking out. And lately it seems like he's not so much the anti-establishment. He wants to be part of establishment, and that's his right. But like, I'm hearing more about Dee Snider these days. Like the other day, he was posting something. He didn't want some political group playing We're Not Going to Take It because they were anti-mask. He's talking about what he thinks is the president of the United States and all this, and that's his right to do so. But you know what I mean? He's getting an image where he's now where he was once the anti-established. He cares more about what people think and trying to get great PR. Oh, hey, I'm over here. I'm with these people.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, at some point, I guess you have to do whatever you think
makes you happy. Yeah.
Your own career, and I guess at some point,
yeah,
he kind of earned his right to be able to say that. But I'm very much with Alice Cooper in the fact that I'm a musician. I'm not a politician.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and you're trying to. I'm glad outside of my music.
I'm glad you brought up Alice Cooper because I'm a huge Alice fan, and I've loved everything he's ever done. I mean, and I really urge people that if you've never seen Alice Cooper live, because who knows how much longer he's going to be. He's like in his early 70s, but he's still rocking, and he puts on the ultimate like rock show if you go see him live. And but what you were just saying, like Dee Snider was heavily influenced by Alice, and he recently made a comment about Alice saying like he didn't think people like Dee Snider should, or he didn't even mention Dee Snider, but he didn't think like musicians and actors should get up and let their political views know. And then Dee takes out like a press statement saying, "I'm very disappointed in Alice in Alice Cooper," and he's like, "I don't really care what Dee Snider thinks." And my point is, like you said, they should stick to. I don't want to say stick to it, but like Dee Snider, he recently put out a great sounding solo album, one of the best things he ever did in years. That's what I think they should focus on. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you know what? If you want to bring that out in your music, like Rage Against the Machine, fucking did great with that.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree.
You want to bring it out in your fucking music? Bring it out in your music.
Yeah.
When you're talking in front of people and you're being you as your personal persona.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, don't use that platform to.
Yeah, and Rage Against the Machine. I'm glad you brought them up because that's a great example of what you're talking about. Because and it's not even like they are getting up on their soapbox, so to speak. But it's not like they're doing that just because that's what is popular. Obviously, Rage Against the Machine. They were really the originators of that. Using their music to kind of get up on their soapbox. So I don't really have a problem with them doing that because they've been doing that since day one. Not just not just since all this Donald Trump and stuff and is going on right now. See, they've been doing that since day one. So I would say thumbs up to Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, and that's the thing. People watch when you change up.
yeah, and getting back to Alice in Chains, I got to say again, if you really get into the lyrics, like especially with Dirt, I was reading a lot of the lyrics. Jerry Cantrell was saying that because he wrote a lot of stuff, obviously, but there's a lot of drug references to throughout the lyrics and stuff, and it's like on the songs are about darker things that they were going through, drug addiction and just depression. And when you it's amazing when you stop and think we're talking about an album where a lot of the songs are based on anger, depression, violence, drug addiction. You're like, man, who could listen to an album of songs about that? But but I think part of the reason people were so immersed with this album is because it's dealing with everyday life. I mean, not just the guys in the band have gone through depression and anger and drug addiction. Probably a good portion of their fan base has, and so it's stuff that a lot of the fans were able, I think, to relate to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ollie Sykes from Bring Me the Horizon is doing a very good job at recreating almost that exact same thing. And I mean, if you look at just the titles on Dirt, Junkhead, Rooster, Sick Man. I mean, it says it all just in the titles alone. And
Godsmack, I never even realized. I'm willing to bet that's where the band Godsmack got their name from, off of this song right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and that's pretty amazing. And I don't know if you even realize, like even here in Los Angeles where I'm from, if you get on Facebook, you'll find like half a dozen Alice in Chains tribute bands that exist today.
Really?
Yeah, I mean it's amazing that you have actually the band is still alive and touring, but they got some really authentic tribute bands to Alice in Chains, if you can even believe that.
See, we have the AC/DC tribute bands out here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm more on the everybody's more into the southern rock.
Oh, okay.
Side of things. So we have some AC/DC tribute bands. We have a few Motley Crue tribute bands. Okay. A lot of Ozzy cover bands for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, I think Ozzy, because up until a few years ago, Ozzy was still touring with Sabbath, but Sabbath is kind of called it today. Ozzy's put out a great new album, but he hasn't really been able to tour behind it because of a mixture of COVID and his Parkinson's disease that he's been battling with. And so I think, that's why that Ozzy's days of probably touring are really numbered, and who knows if he'll ever put out another album. And so I think that's part of a reason why you're going to start seeing more Sabbath and especially Ozzy solo tributes popping up.
Well, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, and now in reference to Sabbath, are you much of a Sabbath fan? Because like I said, Alice In Chains, to me, that's one of the first things kind of attracted me. Like they got kind of a Sabbathy vibe to their sound.
I'm not going to say I'm a huge Sabbath fan. I do like quite a few Sabbath songs.
Okay,
I'm a Dio fan for sure.
Oh, I definitely agree. I love like the classic Sabbath stuff, but I'm more of a fan of the stuff they did with Dio just because he's such a great songwriter, and especially I'll never forget first time I heard Heaven and Hell, and the first time I heard the song Neon Nights. I mean, it just took me a place visually I'd never been before.
Right.
I mean, yeah, he was just such a great songwriter. And I got to ask you, like about Alice In Chains and the Dirt album. They had a lot of like great videos, like Wood, Rooster. I think Angry Chair was one, Down in a Hole. These are all like. What did you think of the videos? Because see again, when most of the time, these bands that do music videos, all the guys in the band are great looking. Probably the only one in Alice In Chains that really was anything appealing to look at was Jerry Cantrell. All the other guys kind of look pretty normal. You wouldn't expect them to be maybe in a rock band, but it didn't really matter because they had that sound. They had that's such a great.
Like Alice In Chains.
Yeah.
Were able to take their drug-induced ideas and put them into video format.
Yeah. And it amazes me because a lot of times you think, how could a bunch of drug addicts write such great songs and create such great music? But I mean, if you go back to classic rock, even like Joe Perry and Steven Tyler, a lot of these guys, they were high when they were writing this stuff, making this great music. It doesn't seem to affect them. Even Nicky Sixx from Motley Crue, I don't know if you ever read that book, The Heroin Diaries, but he claims that he was doing all this stuff and doing all this, writing all this great music when he was high on heroin. But I guess it creates for great music, I guess.
I mean, there's I hate to put it this way, but there's a certain magic that happens when you're at rock bottom.
Yeah.
I guess it's the part of you only have one place to go from rock bottom, and that's up.
Yeah.
And I think people that have experienced that tend to gravitate towards other people who have experienced that.
Yeah.
Especially people who are able to put that pain and that anguish and being in that dark spot, being able to put it into words and how other people feel,
Yeah.
So the relatability is there, the feeling and passion and being able to, that's another thing a band can easily make or break themselves with.
Yeah.
Can you feel the emotion in their music, or are they just kind of up there and they're up there to make the money?
Yeah, and I think like you were saying about Rage Against the Machine, very much the same with Alice In Chains. There's that authenticity of what they do. They weren't faking it. They weren't like, okay, let's go write a bunch of songs and pretend like we're a bunch of drug addicts and getting high. But I think too, I've also heard Jerry Cantrell talk over years about the fact that him and the other guys in the band, they kind of like from the beginning they saw Layne struggle with his drug addiction, and some of them were doing drugs as well, but they weren't as heavily addicted as he was. They were able to overcome their addictions, and carry on. That's why for several years Alice In Chains stopped touring, because Layne just did not have the physical ability to get up on stage and put on a show, and ultimately Alice In Chains didn't get back together until he did die, and they were, and I think a lot of those songs are dealing with what he was going through with his drug addiction, the other guys kind of observing what he was dealing with.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and then how surprised were you when after MTV Unplugged, like you were saying, and then everybody learns that Layne Staley's passed away? I mean, you must have been as surprised as anybody that that they would even consider going on without him. But much to our amazement, I mean, they've been able to do it, you know?
I mean, after doing the MTV Unplugged, I almost thought there would never be. I mean, that's a performance that people are going to talk about 20, 30, 40 years from now.
Oh, yeah. You know? I mean, they're still talking about it, you know? And I think another guy that's a really important part to Alice In Chains, he's not even an original member, is the bass player Mike Inez, you know? I mean, he came from Ozzy's band and that before, but he wrote like a lot of those classic songs, you know, like Heaven Beside You. I mean, he's been very important to their sound, and I think continues to be, you know, even though he's not an original member.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's the way it happens. I mean, I don't, besides myself, I'm the only original member left in my band.
Yeah.
From where we started. So, I mean, and it happens. Sometimes you don't start the journey or finish the journey with the same people you started it with. But ultimately, it's where the final destination is.
Yeah, it's about who's there, like when it all you know, matters. And you're very right now. Before we let you go, Joey, I also want to ask you, because you were sharing with me that your band's getting ready to be part of this tour. So before you wrap it up, why don't you tell us about the upcoming tour and when it's set to kick off and who you're touring with?
All right, so we're actually getting ready to embark on the End of Days tour with some of. When I start naming these people off, you're going to be like, holy cow.
Yeah.
First of all, we're going out with the legendary Saliva. You know, they've got multiple Grammy nominations, Grammy wins, multiple platinum albums. And then on top of that, we're in support of the legendary Dave Ellison.
Oh, wow.
So, for those of you who don't know, Dave Ellison also has Bumblefoot, former guitar player for Guns N' Roses.
Oh, wow.
That'll be there with him. EMP Records is going to be there, Combat Records. Anthem Entertainment's putting all this on. I mean, the first day in San Antonio, we have 19 bands playing. Then we shoot off to Slidell, Louisiana, play over there, and then shoot back to Houston.
Now, so, I mean, where are you guys on the tour as far as, like, are you one of the opening bands? Are you the very first one goes on, or are you in the middle?
No. We are direct support of A Killer's Confession and The Crown.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And how did this how did you guys get to take part in a tour? Did one of the labels like reach out to you and say, hey, would you want to take part in this tour, or did you hear about it?
So for Derek Pichon for 434 Management, he's actually the one who brought us to Pavement Entertainment.
Oh, wow.
2 years ago. Me and him talk almost every day. We were actually me and my wife and my daughter were actually going to go down to Louisiana anyways to check out the show and talk with Paul and Derek, and we were going to talk business about us coming over to the 434 Management side again.
Yeah.
And Derek hit me up 3 days ago. I guess they had one of the bands that, because of COVID travel restrictions, wasn't going to be able to make it. Asked if I could, if I wanted to be part of the tour. I was like, absolutely, you know. And
how many dates are on the tour? Any idea at this point?
It's 3 days right now, but rumor has it, and don't hold me to this, but rumor has it that this tour will be continued on into 2021. Oh,
that is great. And how's the album been selling since it was released?
Oh, the album's doing great. We're actually picking up a lot of sales in Germany, which is really cool. So
wow, you know, now let's talk a little bit. That's pretty amazing, because I'd imagine the band hasn't even stepped foot in Germany. So that's kind of interesting, huh?
Yeah, I mean, when you see it, Germany is the second most played country right outside the U.S. So I was like, that's really cool. Yeah,
you know, that's just talking a little bit about the power of the internet. I mean, it really must boggle the mind to kind of think, wow, you know, we haven't even stepped foot in Germany, played a show there, but you know, people around the world, people are checking our music out. That's got to make you feel really good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, it's always surreal to think that people are tuning in and listening to us. So
yeah. Well, I really enjoyed talking to you today, Joey. And later I'm going to reach out to you, and we're going to do part 2 of this probably next week, which we'll be talking in detail about Alice In Chains Unplugged album, and that features a lot of these great songs we were talking about today from Dirt, but and you know, Facelift, but a lot of the hits, obviously, and that's another favorite of mine, and we'll talk more about it next week. But I really loved, you know, the song, the unreleased song they did on that. But we'll talk about that next week. So thanks for being part of this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Seriously.
Okay, bye-bye. Take care.
Yeah, you too, man.